everyone, and welcome to blog 35 of the Tackle the Feelings Before the Behavior. And today's blog is called What is Healthy Anger? So I think people sort of go one way or the other with this emotion. Either they use anger a lot, they like anger, they see anger as a good thing in some situations and really honor themselves when they feel angry and express it and things like that. Or people tend to try very hard not to show that they feel angry, to the point where they don't even recognize that they are feeling angry, and don't have much of a relationship and feel really intimidated and anxious around people who get openly angry. So I wanted to meet in the middle of both these reactions to this emotion and talk about healthy anger in terms of how this emotion actually benefits us, because as I keep saying in my other blogs, anger and all the emotions are extremely important. They are extremely healthy. They are our internal guidance system. To have a healthy relationship with your emotions means that you can get that intuition, that gut sense, and get that guidance about how you really feel, about what's really going on, and it can really inform you about what you need to do to create emotional safety, to get your needs met, to live a happy life, and to be connected with yourself, with your authentic self. So it's a very difficult one to sort of look at anger in one way or the other, because it's not a very easily controlled emotion. We tend to feel anger, we know it's there, it comes on. Most people are actually quite good at recognizing anger. Unless, of course, there's been some really traumatic abuse there and you don't feel worthy, or there's been shame around experiencing anger. Then you might recognize it, but you get so used to repressing it that you form other emotions that become more prominent for you when you feel anger, because those to you are more acceptable. So healthy anger is anger, but it's recognizing what that emotion is trying to tell you and acting on it. So when we hold this anger in, it most likely starts off as really healthy, but we hold it in and we keep it in for so long that it becomes poisonous to us. So initially it served a purpose, and then it becomes poisonous. So that's where you hear all these things about don't hold in your anger. Anger hurts you, not the other person, and all of that. So there are lots of different associated emotions with anger, such as frustration, feeling tense, feeling enraged, hatred, feeling heated, feeling upset, feeling just exasperated, even angst. All of those emotions have the core emotion of anger. Anger is one of our 6 core emotions. And the purpose for anger, the number one purpose, is to help us with our boundaries. So anger tells us when our boundaries are being violated. And this can be in many different forms. This can be our emotional boundaries. This can literally be our physical boundaries. These can even be our mental boundaries. But someone has crossed a line with you. There is a threat of your personal space or your boundary or your standards being violated. Someone is crossing that. Someone is forcing you or forcing themselves into an area that they do not belong for whatever reason. And we all set different boundaries for ourselves based on our culture, based on our personality, based on our life experiences, based on so many things. And boundaries are those limits. Boundaries are when we set limits for ourselves that say, I can sort of see a person for this amount of time, but after a while I kind of need my space. Or I can answer certain questions about myself, but certain questions are no-go areas. That to me is too personal. That is a boundary. Or in relationships, in terms of what you do, what you say, everything. We do this unconsciously and at times consciously. We set limits for what we can cope with, what is good for us, what falls into our expectations and our sense of reasoning. And so Anger is there to alert us this boundary has been violated. And so when it comes to children, they don't have this in their thinking brains, but they still know when their boundaries are being violated because they will feel anger. Sometimes their boundaries seem really silly to us. For instance, somebody playing with a toy that they want to play with, or somebody saying no when they want to do something and you say no. That to them is putting up a limit on them is um is hindering their freedom. So they get angry. So anger, when it is healthy, is that alert to us, and so it tells you you need to put something in place to maintain your boundary. Someone's crossed it, you need to either create distance from that person, you need to challenge that person, you need to either fight or flight, whatever you need to do to get your boundary back up. Now, whether these boundaries are a bit too rigid or a bit too loose, that's a different blog altogether. But we've set those boundaries for a reason, and anger is there to alert us to that boundary being violated by something or someone else. And we get this also in the form of stress and everything, other emotions like fear and everything come into anger a lot. But what I see a lot with anger, because anger is a real powerful emotion. It's that emotion that most of us sort of feel okay with because it gives us energy. It gives us a drive. It gives us that sense of, I am right. This is wrong. I am not happy about this. I'm going to fight this, or I'm just going to stop talking to this person, or I'm going to cut this out of my life. And that's powerful. That's an empowering emotion. Unlike other emotions such as fear, where you seem crippled by that emotion, you sort of at the mercy of it. Anger often doesn't feel like you're at the mercy of it, even though oftentimes we are. When we can't control our anger, that's when it becomes a problem. But when we are feeling healthy anger, when we're getting angry, when something's gone wrong, that's a good thing. So we often use anger as a secondary emotion as well. And this is what I want to get into, but not so much in this blog today. But you'll see when I talk about tips for helping your kids with anger and things like that in previous blogs I've done, I often talk about how kids will act out. They'll perhaps be feeling scared or ashamed or something, and that feeling isn't getting attended to. And it's a really vulnerable place to be at. When it's shame, it's a really powerless emotion. Shame makes you feel really powerless. Shame is when you don't feel good enough. Shame is when you feel lacking inside, when you feel undervalued, when you feel humiliated and embarrassed. And so you feel really powerless because it's tapping into who you are, what you believe about yourself, your self-esteem. So instead of when you feel that shame, allowing yourself to feel that shame, because shame wants to hide and not be exposed, often we'll turn that around and make it anger. And this happens often unconsciously. And so when we feel shame, boom, we get angry. And we don't even know why we get angry sometimes. And we don't know why we can't calm down from that anger, no matter what we do. We put strategies in place to calm ourselves and count to 10 and everything. But really, we're being alerted for another emotion because anger often becomes a coping mechanism. So when you're looking at anger, when it isn't healthy, when it's maladaptive, that is when it is a secondary emotion that you are using to stop yourself from exploring another emotion, such as your fear, such as your disgust, your sadness, or your shame. So when it's healthy, your boundaries are being violated. It's in the moment and you do something about that. If you don't do something about it and you're sitting with that anger and you're not processing it and you're not taking action, that is when it becomes unhealthy for you. And that doesn't mean there's a specific time frame, but I've seen people hang on to anger for years. I've hung on to anger for a long time without even realizing it. So it's really important to look at the healthy side of all your emotions and how they benefit you. Looking at anger, how it benefits you, how it is alerting you, how it helps you to feel powerful. in those moments when you're not feeling so strong, and really appreciating that, but finding the courage to look beyond that anger when it's unhealthy, because you won't get anywhere in anger if you're not exploring it, healthy or unhealthy. All your emotions, it's bring them out into your conscious awareness so that you can work on them and get their messages, because it's almost like getting psychic messages to you. That's how powerful it is. That's your intuition. And the more you get in touch with your emotions, the more intuitive you are going to become, the more you're going to be able to read a situation accurately, the more you're going to be able to tell if something's good or bad for you, if something's toxic for you, if a relationship is toxic for you, if there's areas that you need to work on it, if there's trauma that you need to work on. So get to know anger, appreciate anger, but also look beyond anger when it is a secondary emotion. So I hope that's been helpful. Have a great week. Bye.